Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the JSUN sports team here on JacksonSun.com.
Hi everybody, welcome to the playoff week 3 edition of JacksonSun.com's High School Football Chalk Talk. My name is Craig Thomas. This is the sports editor and high school football beat writer, Brandon Shields. Another really interesting week. Not a whole lot of teams left, but definitely a big week for all those teams that are still in it here in West Tennessee. We're going to talk about several of those games, and we will start with Class 4A in Alamo as undefeated Crockett County plays undefeated Memphis Trezevant. Obviously, on paper, that looks like a really interesting game. What do you expect for it?
Well, actually, first of all, Trezevant, they do have one loss. They played Southwind or somebody like that, and they beat them like 35-34, so they're really close to being undefeated. But these are going to be two teams that are very, very evenly matched. Everything that you say Crockett County has, Trezevant pretty much has it too, with the exception of one thing, a kicking game. Most of the time, Trezevant goes for 2 when they score a touchdown. But everything else, fast running back with the last name of Jones and the first name starts with J. Crockett County's got it. Trezevant's got it in Jamal Jones. Johnny Jones, obviously, Crockett County. Big line, really good defense that's good at intercepting passes and stopping the run. Crockett County's done that all year. Maybe not very consistently, but they have done it all year. Trezevant's done it all year, obviously, as well. As far as the schedules goes, last week I kind of caught some flack a little bit on radio because I questioned a little bit Crockett County's strength of schedule, and I said outside of Westview and Dyersburg in the regular season, who did they beat? And the last couple of weeks they've beaten some pretty good teams in the playoffs. So and that Westview win was in week 10. So the last month they've been kind of building up their resume and making. Not that I was never a believer in them, but I'm a little more on the Crockett County bandwagon now. And if they can beat Trezevant, I'll really be on board. It's just that I'm getting on board kind of late when we get to semifinals and really good teams in the semifinals. But it's probably going to be a good game. The question I have for Crockett County in this is Trezevant's probably going to hit them in the mouth and match them early on better than just about anybody has that they've played all year. How are they going to respond to that? If they respond to it well, I like their chances.
That'd be a big win for Crockett County, no doubt. In 3A, going over to Gibson County, the Milan Bulldogs had a tough year last year, and they have bounced back in a big way. Had a tough start to the year, but they are rolling right now. Bulldogs will host Hickman County in a maybe unlikely quarterfinal matchup, to be fair, but definitely something the people of Milan are really excited about. Brandon, if you don't mind, just talk a little bit about sort of how Milan's built this thing back up and maybe what kind of chances they have against Hickman County.
Well, I was going to say, week 5, who would have ever thought that Milan would be sitting in this position when they were 3-3 and they just lost their starting quarterback for the season? You're really wondering how they're going to bounce back from this. Well, the way they bounce back from this is playing strong, good defense, feeding Isaiah Ross the ball and letting him rush for, I think, since week 6 when they played South Gibson, and they're 9-3 now. They're on a 6-game win streak. When they started this win streak, in these 6 games, Isaiah Ross has rushed for nearly 1,000 yards. So they really committed to the run and getting back to Milan football. Landon Walker, the replacement quarterback for Marshall Harrison, who got hurt in that Westview game, he didn't have a great start against CPA, which I don't think Joe Montana would have had a great start against CPA as a high school junior making his first start at the varsity level. He's settled down, calmed down, Landon has, into that role. The defense has played much better. That win over South Gibson, they won 28-22. Since then, I think a couple of teams have scored 21, but those 22 points are the most points they've allowed in a game since then. And they shut out Huntington. They held Camden scoreless when Camden went into halftime with a 10-10 tie and had all the momentum last week. So Milan's really good at stopping the run. Guess what Hickman County does well? They run the ball. So I really like how this matchup sets up for Milan, and you're right, this is an unlikely matchup. Milan is the higher seed hosting this quarterfinal game, and essentially it's the quad championship game, and Milan is the 5th seed coming in. So definitely a remarkable run that Milan's on, and if they win, they are in their 5th trip to the semifinals in the past 7 years.
Shifting over to Carroll County, we've got a 2A game, the only playoff game that matches teams in the Jackson Suns coverage area, as Trenton Peabody, which got a big win over Trinity Christian Academy last week, visits McKenzie, which has also sort of built up into another good year after a little bit of a down period. A couple good quarterbacks in this game for sure to start, but can you guys just kind of assess the matchups, what might favor Peabody, what might favor McKenzie going forward?
Yeah, well, first of all, these two teams met in week 0. McKenzie lost to Peabody 56-21, and McKenzie actually started the season 0-2. But when you go back and look, arguably they played the two toughest teams they played so far in the first 2 weeks of the season. Their third loss, Westview, would be a good challenge for those two as being the best they played. But nonetheless, either way you slice it, since that Union City loss, McKenzie has won 8 out of 9 games since then. Is really on a roll. Everything has kind of come together for McKenzie. Coach Wade Comer had to make some personnel changes on the defensive side of the ball, and that's worked. Most notably, DeJohn McNulty. He started out as a linebacker. A couple of games into the season, they moved him to defensive end, and he's leading the team in tackles so far this year. So that move's paid off. And doing interviews this week, I heard about a couple of guys who were sitting on the bench for that Peabody game in week 0. This time around, they're starting on the defensive side of the ball. So in a way, it's going to be a totally new team that Peabody's going to try to beat this time around. And then you look on the offensive side, junior quarterback Jack Serber, thank you. He was making his first start as a high school quarterback against Peabody, whereas Peabody, they were coming in with a bit of a different offense. Was Kendrick Malone was making his first start as a high school quarterback for Peabody that night as well, but Kendrick had a little bit more playing time at receiver, so he was just moving over. So nerves or whatever could have been a factor. That won't be a factor this time because both of these teams, even the young guys, even if there's freshmen on the field, they have a season under their belt, so they'll be both ready to go this week.
All right, another 2A game down south in McNairy County as Adamsville hosts Mount Pleasant. Cardinals, the team that got to the state championship game last year, lost to Trailsdale County, lost a couple of key players, and really, Brandon, haven't missed a beat. I mean, they've been pretty good all year long.
Yeah.
They're back in a position where they can, in the quarterfinals, they're looking to be one of those Final Four in Class 2A. How do you assess Adamsville's chances against Mount Pleasant?
They're coming in 10-1. That one loss being a 49-42 loss to TCA, so they're very close to being undefeated coming in. And whereas Trousdale County, their record isn't as impressive, coming in at 7-4. But talking with Coach Brandon Gray from Adamsville, he said, well, you look at those losses. It's Wayne County.
How about Mount Pleasant, right?
Yeah, Mount Pleasant's losses. Wayne County, who's still in the playoffs. Spring Hill, who's in the 3A or 4A playoffs and had defeated Lexington in the first round of the playoffs. Nashville Christian, who was undefeated in the 1A playoffs, and either Clarksville or Columbia Academy, one of those two, who is still undefeated in the playoffs. Sorry, I'm Middle Tennessee 1A football. It's not at the forefront of my mind right now, but one of the really good private schools, small private schools, is their other loss. So it's not like they just have this horrible record coming in. There's a lot of quickness and athleticism in Mount Pleasant's backfield, and that was really what got Scotts Hill last week. Talking with their coach, Michael Stroud, he said we had a hard time figuring out how to stop them, and we couldn't do it. And before they knew it, the game was over and Scotts Hill's season was over. So now Mount Pleasant's going to Adamsville. The brand of offense they run, it's kind of an old school wing T type, and pretty much they do. It's really smart. You got two good athletes, put them both back there. Either guy could catch the snap and hand it off to the other, or just take it himself. So that leaves the defense guessing. What are they going to do, even for a second or two after the snap? So I kind of delay which way they're going to commit, and that could cause some problems for Adamsville if they're not careful.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys following the coverage throughout the week, throughout the season. If you look back this week, JacksonSun.com, we've had a story on Crockett County. The Faith and Practice was McKenzie's Noah Lawrence. Milan, Jake Raymaker guy, interesting story there is he's kind of taking on a little bit more work for the Milan football team, and then we'll have some more stuff coming up this week, I guess.
Previewing Adamsville's game and Noah will be quoted in another story as we're previewing the Peabody McKenzie game this week. So.
Okay, definitely some stuff to look forward to there. Friday morning, as always, you're used to it by now, the Blitz and the stats as you look at those capsules kind of previewing these games and here in West Tennessee. Friday night, we'll have reporters at all these playoff games that we mentioned, and we'll be keeping an eye on some of the games elsewhere in West Tennessee. Obviously, Union City and Lake County are in the playoffs as well. And you can kind of get a glance in that Saturday morning paper of the games that happened out in the middle and eastern parts of the state, because now these teams are going to start meeting each other here in the semifinals and championships. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Is really the best of the best survive and move on. We appreciate you following along on Facebook. Like us if you haven't already, Jackson Sun Sports. Follow us on Twitter. JS Editor Brandon has the halftime and full game scores. And we hope you like the coverage, and we hope to see you out there this weekend. Have a great week.
See you.